talk to Mark Cancian, a former U.S. Marine Colonel and Senior Advisor at Washington Center for Strategic and International Studies. Mark, welcome back. Good to see you. A ceasefire resolution delayed again for the third time. Why, in your judgment, what are the main points of contention here?
We have to realize that this is a four-corner negotiation. You have, of course, Hamas and Israel, but you also have the United States and the rest of the world, and trying to get all four of those corners to agree on a way forward is very difficult, particularly when two of them, Hamas and Israel, have vowed to destroy each other as part of their war goals. Now, something temporary might be possible. Hamas has been holding back the hostages of their ace. They don't want to use that unless they can get something very big. And then the Israelis, of course, have concerns about smuggling in weapons, as we just heard, and Hamas regenerating itself.
I mean, the world watches in horror at what's happening in Gaza and perhaps in complete disbelief at the impotence of what's going on in the United Nations.
Well, unfortunately, the United Nations is a great place to build a consensus if the parties are willing to come together. That doesn't seem to be the case right now, certainly for anything permanent. I wouldn't be surprised if they might put something temporary together, a couple of hostages in exchange for some pause in the fighting. They did that, of course, before. Hamas has rejected that, but maybe something a little smaller, maybe 20 hostages, something like that. But that's probably the most that can be hoped for at this point.
Well, let's be hopeful and let's be optimistic. What would the adoption of a ceasefire resolution in full mean in practice?
Well, I think the ceasefire resolution, as it's now written, is a non-starter, and that's part of the problem. And there are parts in there that every participant in the negotiation objects to. For example, it calls for the Palestinian Authority to take control over the Gaza Strip. That's anathema to Hamas. They are deadly enemies. Israel has concerns about inspection. Might get around that by having a joint inspection of some sort. The United States objects to anything that looks like a permanent ceasefire, which would be in effect a Hamas victory. It's going to be very difficult to work something out, but long term, short term, temporary ceasefire, that might be possible.
What will be the political and reputational consequences of another failed vote?
Well, the UN has always had a difficult position in that they can't force parties to come to an agreement. We've seen that in Ukraine, for example, where the UN has been essentially impotent. They're a great place for parties to come together, but they can't force an agreement. And this is just another illustration of the organization's limitations.
Would removing the veto power make the United Nations Security Council more effective or simply effective? And is that a realistic possibility?
I think the short answer is no, because every member of the Security Council treasures that veto power. The United States uses it a lot, but so do the Russians, so do the Chinese, the UK also. So this is what makes them special and recognizes their special role in world affairs. They're not going to give it up, none of them.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that anyone who thinks that Israel will stop this war before achieving its goals is not connected to reality. So what hope does that give us for any deal to be reached?
Well, it's certainly going to be difficult. I think that there may be an opening when Israel has finished clearing the north, which they're pretty close to doing, and when they've also cleared Khan Yunis, that would be a natural place to stop, and there's, I think, an opportunity when that occurs.
Mark, good to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming back on the program. Mark Cancian, the former U.S. Marine Colonel and Senior Advisor at Washington Center for Strategic and International Studies.